Okay, we are live now. Good evening, everyone. My name is Aarti, and Vani Murthy is right next to me. We are starting this new series called EcoTalks, where we have conversations, talks, chats with people in the space of sustainability. Today, our topic is community composting, some challenges, some successes. So if you've been in the space of community composting, or if you have an apartment or you live in a gated community, I hope this video inspires you to start and take those necessary steps towards community composting. If you're someone who's already been doing this, I hope this helps some of the questions that you have. In case you have any questions or doubts, feel free to leave them in the chat comments below, and we'll try to address it if there's time. If there's no time, we'll anyway try to address it afterwards. Today, on the panel, on the chat, we have two people, Lata Roddam and Vasuki Iyengar. Lata Roddam started her first composting experience more than 5 years ago in Dubai. She then moved to Bangalore and started composting in her backyard. Once she started composting, she decided to take it up a notch, scale it up a little bit, and began the community composting initiative in her community that is in the outskirts of Bangalore. Since 2018, she has produced 5,500 kilograms of compost, and that's an amazing feat. Thank you so much, Lata, for joining us today. Our next esteemed panel member champion is Vasuki Iyengar. Vasuki is a waste management consultant. He's been in the space of waste management and compost for over 7 years now. He is very popular for his leaf litter compost and temple composting. He's the proprietor of a social enterprise called Soil and Health Solutions. Thank you so much, Vasuki, for joining us. Over to Vani, who will take this on.
Thank you, Aarti, for all the introduction, and welcome Lata and Vasuki to dear people. Lata being my twin sister and Vasuki being a very good friend. Today's session we will look at, as Aarti said, about community composting, the kind of systems that you need, what kind of Lata has taken it in her community. She can share her experience, and Vasuki, of course, has been pioneer in setting up all systems around Bangalore and outside Bangalore. He has collaborated with others also. And so we'll start off with Vasuki. And so just tell me, how did you land into this space, Vasuki? You were in the US, and then you were in the IT profession. So how did SWM, that is the solid waste management, attract you?
Yeah, I was in software for about 22 years. And then actually when the job was no more, and that's what happens in a unstable industry, then we have to actually start looking for another job. And again, there I was also thinking what else to do in life. And a dear friend, Ramanan Natarajan, he at one day called me and told me that let's do some work on garbage. And that's how we started Shuddh Lab. And I was there in that for 2 years, and then later switched over to Soil and Health. And it has been a very interesting and happy journey so far.
That's lovely. That's lovely to hear. So we're talking about large scale composting, about bulk, people who have large communities, bulk generators, about that. So what, do they approach you, or do you approach them? How is it? What kind of systems that you put in? How do you meet people? Could you tell us if there is somebody who drives the program there, who wants this kind of system set up? So could you elaborate on that?
In the initial years, both, I think we traveled together in this, both Bangalore city as well as my journey. And I used to call them, and then we used to offer our services, the people working at Shuddh Lab. But in the last 3-4 years, typically a green volunteer from a community, they would actually call and say, I just came across your name and number, and I really request you to help us out with this. So it's both ways.
That's nice. That's nice. So I'm sure we have progressed a lot in Bangalore when it comes to the community composting. So I'll move to Lata now. Lata, what is composting to you?
It's something that I received in plenty from what you started doing. So it was absolutely beautiful thing that I learned watching you. And today it's a big addiction because of the journey that you go through with you first and then on my own.
Right, right.
On top of that, yeah. So
yeah.
I think it's, yeah.
Yeah, so you started on your own in Bangalore, in your backyard. And what was that like? What is the experience? What kind of composting systems did you put in your backyard? I know that you've done a lot with vermicompost, and tell me a little bit of what you did in your backyard.
It was very exciting to move back to Bangalore, and and then the excitement of being near you, following you, getting help, ready hand from you, and and then you put me onto Vasuki, and that was an amazing thing because that's when he started. When I was always composting at home, my own kitchen waste never went out. But then when I wanted to do it in my backyard in a larger scale, because when we moved into this gated community, it was an amazing place where you had hundreds and thousands of trees, and it had a lot of leaf litter, and I was feeling very bad that I didn't want the leaves that are falling in my garden to go away, in the tractors and things like that. So I said, let me at least collect and start doing that. So I think that was the first motivation, that to not let those leaves go away. And Vasuki helped me. We put two of the small mesh composters, and we started doing that. And the intent was also that I was trying to find like-minded people in the colony to do that. And I said, if I set up a system, it will be like an example for people. And
right.
that's when I can, show them that this is something that is, because initially when you talk to people and try to get your feelers going, what they're thinking is, it's always like, no smell, mosquitoes and these things. So, and I knew by your experience and staying with you and, watching you for so many years doing all this is nothing. All these are secondary. When you really, what is the purpose of wanting to do something is more important than the, so-called side things that people are so worried about. So that's the way that I thought the best way is to set an example. And when that was a success, that was the best part, that succeeded very beautifully, because Vasuki and me, we found a very nice place to compost. Even now he tells me always that it's a very beautiful place because it's enough shade, and and we got some amazing compost out of those two wire composters.
Right. Yeah, so it's like I think everything coming together, ideal conditions. Composting is all about the balance of everything. I'm sure you hit the jackpot there, and the treasure is all black gold that you reap. So how did you scale it to the community level? Like, what motivated you to take it on to the community level?
See, the thing was, we were always worried because Bangalore, by then, SMRWT, whatever you guys were trying to get laws passed. And also, when I moved in, that was the exact time when people, they stopped taking, the municipality stopped taking wet waste, and they said everybody should compost. It was ideal time for me to implement that. I think the place I lived, most of the residents are directly coming from somewhere and living there. They're not Bangaloreans, basically. So I didn't realize, I realized very quickly that they didn't know much about what's happening in Bangalore. So, and we tried to find out what's happening with the waste. And, so I found two girls in my colony who, Roli and Kirti, who were like-minded like me and wanted to do something for the villages and, wanted to do social service. And I said, let's start that, please, let's start in our own place. Like, let's do something. And Kirti, of course, she also was doing composting. So the only person who was really composting in that, and she had her own leaf composting.
Beautiful garden that she had. Yes.
Beautiful garden she had. we went about, and then we said, let's investigate and find out what's happening with everything,
Yes.
because without proper data, we cannot put through any idea that we have. So when we found out our wet waste was, we didn't know where it was going. The dry waste, actually, we investigated and found out that it was being dumped in the lakes around the villages, some of them, because that was the most horrific thing that we went to find when we really walked around. We drove around all the places in the villages and all that. And then that's when we said we have to put an end to that. Everybody should realize that the minute we give away our waste, that means it's going out of our face. That's it. And where it's going, nobody knows about it. So when that the reality came, we really actually approached the association. We put up a nice, presentation and things like that. And by then, of course, Vasuki was already working with me with this, and he helped me to get an amazing success with my own composters. So that's when we decided what we can do, go about finding a place, things like that. Convincing was a little difficult sometimes.
So I'll come back to your community again. Yeah, I'll come back to that. Yeah. So Vasuki, she has clearly said how it takes some time. It takes a champion, a green champion, as you call them, to push or motivate or get a team going. And yes, that's extremely important there. And I want to know from you, what are the different kinds of composting systems that are kind of available that you have seen? And I want you to put light on the 24-hour composting machine, which has become such a talking point today. And we really people should understand what it means. So you talk about the systems that are good for us, and what is the 24-hour composting machine, if you can show us the difference.
Sure. So broadly, we actually talk about aerobic composting, which is one thing that works out at a community level or at a ward level, or when we are trying to process huge amount of money. Typically, some communities have. It depends on the space availability. How much space that the our community can where the composters can be placed. So broadly, there are two types of composters. One that works for less space. Let's say it's an apartment and they have very less space on the ground, and they have some space on the terrace. We have a set of vendors in Bangalore who actually offer solution for such communities or apartments. The other type is where there is more space available. It can be an institution, or it can be a villa property like Shobha Lifestyle, or it can be even the layout that I live in. When there is more space, then we can actually go for more air circulation containers. And mesh composters, as it is actually very popular and something that anybody can actually make it, is is a container for such communities. Now, even at Lata's community, there was a lot of discussion around 24-hour composting machines. Humans are fascinated about machines actually from the beginning, and our principle has been actually keep it simple, right? And try to not have a baby. Try to not have a baby in 1 month instead of 9 months. Yeah, not have a baby in 1 month, but it takes 9 months. So it's the same way. Compost cannot be generated in 1 day, when it actually takes 45 days. The microbial, composting process. So, but there is a huge rush, and there is also a rat race in terms of saying, okay, my composting and my microbial culture, if you use, it will be ready in 3 weeks. It comes down to 2 weeks. It comes down to 3 days, and then to 24 hours also. What comes out of a 24-hour composting machine is a burnt carbon, what we call it as, because what they do is they chop, they grind it or pulverize it, and then they heat it up to remove all the moisture that is there in the kitchen waste. That also kills the useful microorganisms, and the output is actually burnt ash, what you get. And typically, the electricity expense on 24-hour composting machines is humongous. If you have to maintain your 100 kg of kitchen waste at 110 degree or 120 degree, imagine it's like around 14,000 to 20,000 rupees electricity charge for that one. And then the other thing is the gardeners in the community refuse to use that compost, and even they will not allow you to even put it in one corner also, because it is so something that will be that can burn the plants, and they don't want the plants to dry up. And no farmer will come to pick it up also. In order to make it useful, you will have to spend another 1 month, 3 months or 6 months in order to bring life into that burnt carbon.
That's really, really scary. And I think a lot of people are falling prey to this 24-hour composting because everybody wants a quick fix, and it's really scary, the way it's going. I want you to talk about the what kind of training, once you actually decide a system, or a community decides a system, what kind of segregation that needs to be put in place, housekeeping training. Can you just briefly talk about that?
Sure. I just wanted to just step back a bit. In fact,
Sure.
when Lata was actually talking about her community, what she did is a proof of concept. In her home, in front of her home, she put two small shishiras. I think coming from a corporate background, we always speak about phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 approach. And that's exactly what we did at the villa property. Proof of concept was by Lata, and then also she led by example. She was actually leading and then saying that, okay, you know what, I am demonstrating to you guys that it doesn't smell bad, because most of the places where I go and try to talk about, their repeated question is that, is it going to smell bad?
Yes.
And
Yes.
when we do a proof of concept with one or two composters, then it is actually convincing to them. And then the second aspect is the phase 1, we actually supplied only 2 big composters, and then the 6 more were added on phase 3. That's a good thing. Now segregation. So whenever I receive a call, from a community saying that, can you please come and help us out in community composting? First question I have to ask is, are you segregating your waste?
Yes.
Because you cannot talk about composting if you are not segregating, first of all. And when we talk about segregation, it is actually at not just 70%, 80%, it has to be up to 90%. And so let's say they say, yes, they are segregating, and then they actually, I have to know how much waste are they generating. Typically, communities, people think that still they want to go by 500 grams average, and they say, okay, 100 houses, I'm generating 50 kg. That's no longer true. We are actually now, with the economic level and the way we are leading our life, we are actually generating about 750 grams to 850 grams. So once I know the quantity, number of apartments or the number of villas, then I tell them, okay, this is the how much wet waste you are generating. That actually is a factor to determine number of composters required.
Okay.
And so then we actually take it to the next level. Sometimes segregation obviously is a precursor to composting. Sometimes actually composting helps people to segregate better also. So it works both ways.
Both ways. That's nice. That's nice. So the training for the housekeeping, collection, and
Sure. When we go with the composters on the day of installation, there will be a training for the housekeeping team and gardening team also. It depends on who will be managing this. And the training doesn't stop at only like the first day, 2 hours, because they will have questions the second day. I think in Kannada they say Dvitiya Vigna, so it cannot be. So second day also we have to go, and at that time they will have more questions because they have started composting. And then a week later there'll be one more visit, and then they will ask me a question. What we also have done is we have made a video on the process. At the same time, I encourage the how the volunteer team and the management committee team to record the work done by the housekeeping team and the gardening team. We need to encourage them. Tell them, okay, you know what? I'm going to take your picture. You are doing an awesome job. You need to pat them on their back and then encourage them, because waste management is least respected job
Right.
in this unfortunate thing, and we have to actually encourage them and then bring that whole thought process that they are doing something very important. And that can happen when you take pictures along with the volunteers, everyone together, and then the second day training, and then the 1 week later. Also, whenever I visit, to supply the consumable, at that time also we still keep, okay, look at it and then say, okay, this is what you can do better. What happens is after 3 months, they start teaching me. That's the good part, right? I learned most of the things in improving the product design or the process design from the workers.
Right, right. Amazing. And hats off to the patience that you always have. I've always known for you, the person who, talks softly and explains so well and with so much clarity. And I'm sure lucky are the people who get, your kind of advice. And I know how much Lata appreciates what you have, how you have supported her in her journey in her villa community. So Lata, now that you found your volunteers, so how did you approach the management committee? Was there any resistance, or what is the initial reaction that you want to put some processes in place? You have so much of leaf litter, it is going away. And what was it? Could you just tell us about it? Because I'm sure a lot of people have the same challenges that there won't be any approvals. So how do you really go about, convincing them or giving them that kind of
Yeah.
that it will happen?
I think it's always very difficult to start something. The thing is how clear you are in what you want to do and what you think should be done. So
Okay.
I think I had that clarity. I had the backup. I had the knowledge and the help. So whatever was coming in the way in the form of resistance was all the time. I kept telling myself this has to sustain. So if you push too hard, sometimes you have to back off. Like you just can't bully your way in, or tell elderly people or people with more they've all achieved something in their life, they have something, so you've got to have some kind of respect for people and their thinkings. Obviously they don't know how to think like how you do, obviously, and if you think you're thinking right, then you can make the change only by wanting to sustain this whole process. So I think that that maturity I did have, and it was difficult because people were having beautiful gardens and they sourced their own compost, and they didn't believe that one could do this within our complex. So and regarding, and there was also the thing is that they outsource all their work because it's like an association. So the thing is that other people also, you need to influence them, or they resist more. Sometimes I felt there was a lot of resistance because they thought we're taking over something from them, like the people who had like contract with our association, things like. So you're trying, you become very intimidating if you want to push an idea forward, so
Right.
Initially that's the main issue, that you have to sustain, you had to believe in what you're doing, and then
Right.
they do come around. But then you have to solve the questions, need to be asked, you have to be patient, you have to be respectful. You got to understand that it takes time for people, because I have seen you in this space for so long, trying to even if you're talking to 20 people, even one person converts to your kind of thinking, you would be happy. So I was luckily with that kind of mindset that you just keep going on like how you did. So I guess it was easier because of that. Yeah.
So so now that you got the committee going and all the approvals happening, so what kind of systems did you put up, and what kind of training was needed, or you had to supervise and, handhold them, make them believe it's going to happen. So what kind of support you ongoing, you were saying you sustained a process. You were able to get some self-sufficiency in the compost that you generated. So could you just little, touch upon that?
Yeah, our journey is just a small one, right? It's like 2018 we started, and now it's 2020, and the thing is now it's completely independent. They everybody there manage on their own. I have no problem. I only take care of when they, absolutely when they harvest the compost, how many kgs they got, and what, whom do we sell it to. So I do all that kind of thing only now. But the guys have become so good, and they're on their own, and they're so motivated. It's unbelievable. That's what you always said, that it's something about the soil. It's something about the worms. Like, we do wormy composting in those huge things. There's like hundreds of thousands of worms that they harvest, these guys, with their own hands. But initially you did have, Vasuki was there all the time. Every time he came, he would meet me for some other purpose, and we would go down there and talk to the boys, and all the time keep them motivated, constantly visiting them, constantly asking them what problems they face, because they do waste sometimes. And then you have to be involved. You have to go to the residents. Because I was the last person that would go and visit a resident and tell them that, I can help them. I can come into their kitchens. I can help their maids how to solve. Like, you have to go down to that, because it's very, very, the chain is so tough to get that good, kitchen waste into your composter. And it's very difficult, because we accept all kitchen waste, which is also like, it's got a lot of non-vegetarian in it, like, a lot of things. So, and people don't maintain it properly. They want to give it in plastic bags. So it was a huge process, even for those guys who, now wearing gloves and trying to do all this. Initially, you had to tell them, like, somehow they need to hang in there. So that process became so beautiful, because they are the guys who are so proud of their unit there, like, you don't have to, even come in front of them. I find everybody in the society today, especially during this COVID times, they are the ones whom people are saluting, because they're non-stop picked up waste. Like, they haven't stopped, these boys, and they're continuing to compost. They don't think, okay, now because COVID, we can't reach that in time, or, the initial out time when there was also all the bans. They did all their work in so much of devotion and dedication, because they owned that thing. It became theirs.
Exactly. Yes, that's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. So, did you have issues with smell? How did you manage if there was one?
Yeah, initially, yes. Till the boys also, like, when sometimes I will go, like, I go in the morning for a walk, and I'll see something is smelling. So then I have to, instead of asking the boys, why is this smelling? I would go when they're mixing, when they're layering, to see where they're going wrong. Like, obviously the smell is coming because it's compacting. So I know the science behind it. So I said, what do you do next? So you go there. And then when you saw them layering, hello, this too much is going wet waste. I think you can put in a little more leaves, or let's put in a little more of old compost. Like, you do put some more of this bioclean, bioclean into that. So the layering was the problem. Now there is no problem. Initially, yes. And then, there were houses coming up in front of the place where we have this whole systems going on. And the community, the society was very worried. They said that when those houses finish and people will occupy that, your project is going for a toss. So that one danger for us to protect that, we didn't want to lose something that we built so beautifully over 2-3 years. So, so it is a constantly something like this will come up, but then I think it's too strong project now to ever, fail or go bad. It's taken off like a rocket, and it's doing brilliantly, I should say, touch wood.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. Vasuki, I needed you to give us more details on the layering that Lata was talking about. See, the browns, the microbes, the greens, and also are shredders and choppers necessary? Because when you talk about large scale composting, there are hundreds of kgs that come, to the composting system, whichever is in place. So could you just elaborate a little bit about what kind of microbes, what are the browns, and how do you manage all of them, including the non-veg waste that could get a little pathogenic? So about flies and mosquitoes. So if you just want to talk about all of that, so that
Sure.
people get comfortable with, wanting to take this as a project?
Definitely. There is actually a tarpaulin method. I think my friend Malini Parmar actually speaks about that because she felt that, why are you doing this whole, thing about mixing the browns and greens? And at the when we go, we actually also carry a set of the plastic tubs and tarpaulin sheet and a rake and a blue drum and things like that, so that it's all there. So the method is actually you put a layer of dry leaves. If you crush it, crush the dry leaves, and that's good. And now every place I go, I usually speak about Vani jogging on the sack of dry leaves. So inspire them, and then we put a layer of crushed dry leaves on the tarpaulin sheet, and then we put some old compost and then some bioclean, the microbial coco peat. On that, we add the kitchen waste, which is about 20 to 30 kg or up to 50, I think 20 to 30 is a very good thing. And then we spread it. And then any secondary segregation of minute or smaller chocolate papers, the medicine strips, the earbuds, stick, these are some things that do come at times, and it has to be actually taken out. So, and again, on top of the kitchen waste, after spreading, we add a layer of microbial coco peat, old compost, and then crushed dry leaves. So it makes a sandwich. And then they hold the four sides of the tarpaulin sheet, 2 persons, and then they just flip it around a bit, very easy work, and then they put it into the composter. That makes a lot of difference compared to actually adding a 50 kg drum waste directly into the composter. And then if you actually spread it, and then that's called a layering process. Then when you do little bit of this additional effort, it goes a long way in helping in that whole decomposition and the cycle. The period time that it takes to compost it will actually help a lot. So we teach them about these things, and they can also do it in plastic tubs. I usually leave it to the person, like the supervisor and the housekeeping team, to decide whether they want to use tarpaulin sheet or the tub. And we actually listen to them. Okay, you know what, you choose which method you want. And then again, after adding it to the composter, they actually cover it with some amount of dry leaves, because kitchen waste should not be visible at all. So it should be covered with brown material. Now, in terms of cheaper alternatives to microbial coco peat, there is actually crushed dry leaves. It's an awesome thing that we can actually take it. If you are introducing a shredder or a chopper, chopper is for chopping the kitchen waste, shredder is for dry leaves. And if you introduce any machines, that adds additional 2 extra hours. And we have seen that if it is more than 500 kg, addition of shredder and chopper helps. If it is less than 500 kg, it can be managed without that. And addition of these things will in fact complicate things also.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so what about you have been doing temple flower composting, or temple whatever comes out of the temple waste, curbside composting, or the leaf litter, when somebody is willing to do it on their street, and also parks, like Coven Park and all that. So just throw some light on that.
Sure. We started actually the journey of temple composting about 4 years ago. I mean, it started at this Kalyan Nagar Shakti Mahaganapati temple, and we actually installed 5, and the temple is in a park and with lots of trees. And flower, actually, wherever you put it, wherever you hang it, it never smells bad. And it was actually going out along with the other waste, and that could be actually used areca nut plates or used paper cups and all those things. But this temple, run by Ashok, who is one of the volunteer, Anupama's brother, he called me, and we actually installed these composters, and it helped a lot in managing not only the dry leaves, flowers, And then we actually also manage the fruit peels and vegetable peels in the same composter, and then also the leafy donne. So the temple geared more towards becoming a zero waste temple in reducing the one-time disposables also. And after that, there are 50 temples in Bangalore who have this mesh composter, and they are actually using it. And then Kaban Park and Lal Bagh happened because of our good friend Mr. Ramakant sir pushing the deputy directors, and we have those composters in both the places. Even though it manages only very small portion of these things, but still it's a very visible and proud to say that it is there actually in those places. And then we actually started this whole movement called Swachha Bidi. So the same mesh composter, a smaller version can be installed on the footpath in the dead space where it doesn't obstruct the pedestrian movement, and leaf that is actually swept on the street can be added into the mesh composter, and about 6 to 8 homes can add their kitchen waste into the same composter, and your street can be Swachhabidi, means clean street. And it picked up momentum, and we have about 150 to 180 such composters, Swachhabidi leaf composters in Bangalore at different places. And I think that's the whole success story about temple composting and
That's
Swachhabidi.
brilliant. Now everybody who is listening, we can utilize all this. These are all resources that's just getting lost. It lands up in the landfill, gets trapped there, and it is polluting our environment. So if we could put processes in place where it could make a huge difference. I think it is citizens who have to start as a movement, and there is a lot of help now. There's so much that we have learned over a period of time, and I'm sure if you reach out to our Swachhagraha website or to the SWMRT website, you will find that there is so much of resource people who will help you out in setting up systems and all that. And I would like you to talk about Swachhagraha Kalika Kendra, Vasuki, because this is like one of its kind in the world. I would say world because I don't think anything like this has been set up before. Our dear friend Shanti from my team SWMRT, a tall leader in our space, has motivated volunteers there, and they set up a learning center. So I would like that's very exciting for us because Kalika Kendra has brought in thousands and lakhs of people visiting. So could you just tell us what it is all about?
Sure, it's actually Bangalore's pride, and
Right.
so we broadly Kalika Kendra has 3 sections. There is a home composting section where we have on display 12 containers from 12 different vendors and some of the DIY composting containers also. And then the second section is for community composting. 300 kg of kitchen waste collected around HSR, that particular sector where the park is located, is managed within the park. And these are live models. And so you get to walk in, and then you can actually look at them, and then you can compare and then find out which one is suitable for your community. And the third section is, what do you do with the compost? And that's a usual question asked by volunteers, the management committee, and even the residents. And we have on display the growing options. There are actually 4 service providers, and then we have DIY growing section also, where compost is used and to grow both greens and vegetables.
Fantastic, fantastic. So talking about what you do with the compost, Lata, what is it that you have done with the amount of compost that you generated? Could you give us some statistics about how much compost that got generated, if you have some kind of statistics, and who actually took the compost, and how was it like? I'm sure the sustained part came only because it got used up somewhere. So just give us some idea about how that compost got used up, and what are the statistics that you have.
Yeah, right. Initially, you never think about a commercial point of view, or it will earn something for you, because I didn't want that to be in the forefront to make people believe that, you can earn something out of it. But
when we really got the first composter is completely utterly failure for us. We couldn't extract anything, so we needed to have to put them back again and let it harvest after a couple of months. So we did two together and we got some 900 kilos from that finally,
Wow.
and then we had a very good nice person in the community who said, I will buy it. So he was the first person for his office. He had a big garden or something, and he bought those 900 kgs as a goodwill gesture from a resident. And that was an amazing, good luck for us. So since then, every composter, we, it's like a 3-month sit-in there, and then we harvest after another 4 to 5. It fills up in 1 month. We have about 60 residents, so it fills up in 1 month. This huge, 5 feet by 5 feet compost is there. And then after 4 to 5 months, we harvest it. And sometimes there's no time because these guys do so much work, and this is another additional work for them. And finally, we put it to the resident association that we would like to sell it to our own community. So we fixed a nominal price for a good variety, and now it's smoothly, getting bought by everybody in the community. And people actually, when we put it out for sale, it gets sold in no time on those groups, and
It gets pre-booked, I hear.
yeah, sometimes we take pre-booking for the next composter too. So
Yeah.
it's a very exciting process that we are going through for the past year, and people love it because people who realize it's their own kitchen waste that has come back to them in the form of black gold, and they all have gardens. And they just love it. Some people really love buying, 250 kgs, 500 kgs. Like, they would want to buy the whole stock sometimes.
Fantastic, fantastic. So we have another 15 minutes, I think, to go. So Lata, you also took this to Sri Lanka. A very dear friend of yours, Sandhya, stays there. You went and spent some time with her. So just tell us about your experience in doing some composting there.
Yeah, I went there for a long holiday to be with my friend, and it was so because we started a composting solution for her a year back. The previous year I went, and that was in a big mess. This drum that you see, it was in a big mess, and it was smelling, and there was so much of it had a lot of worms and all that. So I decided to pull that out completely. And I redid that, collected leaves from all over the place on their road, because Sri Lanka rains, dry leaves and things like that. So finally, when we got this done, I was telling her, there's so much more leaves. What do we do? I want to build a little bit of, this raised platform. And I needed cow dung very badly, because I can't do a raised platform without leaf composting without cow dung. So I used to go for long walks and all, and I really found in some little farm that somebody had a cow, and I got some cow dung, which shocked my friend because she said nothing in this area like this. And after that, we built a platform, and we collected leaves even from her cousin's house and aunt's house and everything, and used to bring bags and bags of leaves, and we did that. So it was, I think, a project that I enjoyed. And right now, during this COVID times, in her area, she has suggested that we are burning leaves, which is a very horrible thing that happens even in Sri Lanka. And they have put up a proposal in the society that they have to do something about the leaves and not burning them. So, which is very nice. Like, I'm talking about a year back, this was like, it does take time. It does take time for people to, realize and, expand their wish and their practices also,
Yeah, that's so amazing, and I can see there's so much of passion that you have found in putting your hands into these piles of lovely dry leaves, and repairing a compost that has gone little bad. So yeah, I think it feels so good when you compost and when you help somebody understand compost. So our journey has been that whether it's Vasuki or me or anybody in our solid waste management roundtable, we really feel, because that's the most important thing, because 60% of what we generate is compostable. It comes from your kitchen. We eat 3 times a day. It's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. All of us do that, and there's so much of peels that's left over. And if everybody understands that composting is a process, that it needs a little attention, and then it's just automatically happens. So once you understand and learn, it all happens later. So I think that's it. So what would you dream of doing, in future? What is it that you still think can be done?
Yeah, we still have lots of leaves going out of the community, and it's unbelievable the amount of dry leaves that fall during these fall months and summer months. So my dream is to build this zero cost effective waste platforms, because we do have a lot of area, and it can be done in a beautiful manner. And somehow I feel I have to involve the community and the children and let them adopt maybe one race platform, so that we work on that as a community, but they own it, kind of thing, because they put the maximum effort, or because they should feel good about having something, it's theirs or something like that. So I don't know if I want to move into having the kids involved, and I want to do home composting more than anything else. I haven't found time for that because I've traveled so much, and right now we are stuck because of COVID outside the country. So it's there. My dream is that we become a very vibrant composting community. That's it.
Oh, fantastic. I hope a lot of people get motivated and inspired by that. On closing comments, I would definitely like Vasuki to take us through, what is the Compost Connect. Savita Hiramat, one of our, very, our member who's been very active in the space of composting. She's got an amazing blog called Endlessly Green. I'm really sorry, Endlessly Green, and she has done all kinds of composting, documentation of all kinds of community composting, large composting. So she started, and we all started in SWMRT. It was her idea that we do the Compost Connect, that is connecting compost. People who make compost in the city to the farmers who need them. So could you just tell a little bit about the Compost Connect?
Sure. First thing is about Savita Hiramat. She is the one who encouraged me as well when I was like so shocked to see the carbon to nitrogen ratio, and then said like, oh God, how do I fix this kind of a thing? And she would, she actually, her, blog where 18 composting methods are documented is a Bible. Is still a very appropriate thing for any community who is actually trying to start composting or exploring composting. Please visit Endlessly Green. And now she's doing this Swachhagraha Compost Connect, where producers or bulk generators who generate compost are in this WhatsApp group, as well as the farmers who need the compost. It is a very important thing that we connect the producers and the farmers, so that they use it, they grow vegetables and bring it back and sell it to the the apartment where they collected the compost also, or other apartments. So so far there has been about 10 such large connects, where from an apartment it has been lifted out, and then farmers have taken it to their farm and then used it, and they are happy about it. And this is actually something that our civic agency has been talking about, doing it. And now this organization called Solid Waste Management Roundtable has been able to facilitate that through a simple WhatsApp group. It takes time for farmers to believe in city compost. It's not easy, and that's something that actually she worked on to bring the right farmers who are actually open to such thing, because they are very used to using chemical fertilizers or pesticides, and we need to bring this black gold to the farm, and it is working very well. The Swachhagraha Compost Connect. And any community who want to be part of, or they know some farmers who want to be part of, they can actually connect with the solid waste management roundtable, and we will make sure that you are included. During the pandemic and the lockdown, one very interesting thing happened is lot of farmers actually wanted to sell their produce directly, and because the middlemen were not there, and they brought tons and tons of their agricultural vegetables and greens and fruits, and when they were going back, the same volunteers were able to tell them that you are going with an empty vehicle, you might as well actually take the city compost from here, and it can actually work wonders for your agricultural field. So that's a good thing coming out of coronavirus and the lockdown.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So as you all saw that, creating compost at household level or at a community level, it only ends up, feeding the soil, which makes the soil so much of nutrients in the soil, because of you're putting organic matter back and then growing food, and eating that food, which nourishes us. So it's so important to keep this cycle going, putting back organic matter. So most of us should be very sensitive that what if it goes out of our home or out of a communities, it is going to be polluting. It could end up in a river, lake, in a drain, or wherever, and in the landfill. So it is so important. So Aarti, take over for the final comments, and thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you Lata, and thank you Vasuki for the first of the talks that I and Aarti have ventured into, and we'll keep this going. And Aarti, for the final comments.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving us your time, Lata and Vasuki, and thank you so much for all the amazing comments and all the viewers who have been so attentive, and they've been cheering us on and supporting whatever we stand for. Exciting news, we are coming back next week, so on the 26th of June, so that's the coming Friday. We will be back, and our next topic is going to be on eco-friendly travel and eco-friendly events, or zero waste travel and zero waste events. So hope you tune in. Don't forget to check out Worm Rani, that's Vani's Instagram handle, or even Vani Murthy on Facebook. Since you're watching her, I'm assuming you know that handle as well. So we'll give you more information on that as well soon.
You want to say who's going to be on the show?
Oh, we have amazing eco warrior Shyamla Suresh, who herself has conducted several zero waste weddings and travels, and she's going to be talking about her experience, her near and dear ones experience, all experiences.
Thank you so much, and happy composting to all of you.
Yes.
Thank you, Lata and
Thank
Vasuki.
you.
Once again, and Aarti for the amazing support that you are.